Good afternoon. Welcome to the Conversations program. Thank you for being here. If you're just joining us, my name is Colleen.
Oh, sorry, I got yours.
Oh,
sorry.
sorry, we're going to do that again. Thank you, Angelica. My name is Colleen Milliard. I am the executive editor here at Basel. I'm delighted to introduce this panel entitled Hong Kong, Basel, and the Architecture of Cultural Exchange. This panel is designed to take a deep dive into the cultural fabric of Hong Kong and its ripples across the world, all the way to Basel. So I'm really thrilled to welcome on stage Angelika Li, who is a founder of PF25 Cultural Projects here in Basel. Of course, Betty Engay from the Architectural Practice Collective in Hong Kong, and our very own Angelle Siyang-Le, the director of Art Basel Hong Kong. So please join me in welcoming them all on stage and enjoy the conversation.
Thank you everyone for coming here. Since we are all been introduced already, shall we just dive in? Today we're going to talk about the architecture of cultural exchange, and we're going to dissect into the components of the so-called cultural ecosystem. And we had a brief introduction of each of you. I just would like to kind of maybe have you to introduce yourself a little bit more, my fellow Hong Kongers, and your connections with Basel as well. Angelica, would you like to start?
So, hi, everyone. I'm Angelika Li, and thank you, Art Basel, for inviting me to this conversation. So I'm originally from Hong Kong, and I moved to Basel 8 years ago. And you know the speed of Hong Kong, the Hong Kong speed we call it. And in 10 months' time, I really saw so much, and I feel, okay, let's do something about Hong Kong, you know, seeing Basel with Hong Kong eyes. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the first idea we got. And then PF25 kind of grew. And yes, from a kind of very modest community, and now we have a growing kind of partners and friends, and across Switzerland and Europe.
Great. And Betty, what's your relations with Basel?
I actually lived in Basel for a bit, around 17 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's really nice to be back. I was working as an architect at Herzog & de Meuron. But then I decided to go back to the Dutch side, so I worked for a Dutch company for a long time. It's beautiful to be back. It's, you know, like, things didn't really change so much.
Unlike Hong Kong.
But then it's also lovely to see familiar faces. So I was born and raised in Hong Kong. I study architecture in the US. And then I practiced in Europe for European firms, but have done projects all over the world. And 10 years ago, I went home to Hong Kong and set up my own company called Collective. And we're doing a kind of like a loop slide right here. And the first slide just now show my very dear partners, Chi-Yan and Juan, American lady and a Spanish guy, and myself, a Chinese Hong Kong lady. We co-run Collective together. So the idea is to have a architecture company that is set in Hong Kong, but we do projects everywhere in the world. Yeah.
Right, international collaborations. So basically today we are talking about the two cities, Hong Kong and Basel. First of all, why do we use Hong Kong as a kind of a case study? Is that I'm going to share a very personal story. Some of my colleagues sitting here have heard it many times. Basically, I've been with Art Basel for 13 years, and I moved back to Hong Kong for the first edition of Art Basel. When I landed back in Hong Kong, I was living in London and in Dubai, landed back in Hong Kong, got on a taxi. The taxi driver looked at the reverse mirror, was like, so young lady, what are you doing here? I was like, oh, I just moved back to Hong Kong, got a job in the art world. He was like, the art world, what does that mean? I was like, well, you know, we do art and culture in Hong Kong. He was like, oh dear, you got to the wrong city. We don't have art. Haven't you heard? Hong Kong is a cultural desert. So that was 13, 14 years ago. That was in 2012. I mean, like, it's a bit unfair for the taxi driver to say that, but obviously as a taxi driver, he wasn't really aware what what art does the city offer? It was it has been the financial center, but not so much known in the past as a cultural center. Even though at the time we already have Christie's, Sotheby's, we had the Hong Kong Museum of Art, we have Gagosian already. But the locals, they're not so aware of what the city can offer them in terms of art and culture. And fast forward 13 years later, Hong Kong is obviously not only a regional art hub, but actually a global art hub. In the art market, Hong Kong and mainland China ranked number 3 in the world's art market, just like 1% below London. So now, today we're going to talk more about how a city like Hong Kong having the hardware and now further nurturing the software, and how do we do that? Building an art ecosystem, a cultural ecosystem, through also the help of architecture. And Hong Kong is also not only, with world-class museums like M+ and the Palace Museum, but also it's a logistic hub. And before these panels, like Betty and I, we were chatting about how Hong Kong building the concept of open storage. Maybe we can explore it a little bit as well. And more importantly is this international cultural collaborations. This panel, by the way, is supported by Hong Kong Tourism Board, because Hong Kong is not only looking inward, but we're also looking outwards. And we want to make sure that it's a city to bridge not only East and West, but also the old and the new, the traditions and the contemporary. So now, Betty, I'm going to pass the stage back to you. So in your perspectives, what do you see the transformation of Hong Kong culturally in the past 15 years? I know that you also collaborated with K11 Kunsthalle, as well as the latest Christie's Asia headquarter in the Hendersons, and as well as Parasite. How did you see this transformations through architectural spatials?
So in 2009, the financial crisis happened. I graduated from my master's degree. I was hoping to go back to New York to work. But then at that time, I was at OMA, this Dutch firm, and they told me, no, you're going to Hong Kong. I was like, what do you mean? Because there was a new competition called the West Kowloon Cultural District. Yeah. Interestingly enough, this project started in the 90s. That was exactly an address from the government. They did a survey, and everyone claimed Hong Kong was a cultural desert. Unfortunately, at that time, the name of that district was called the Entertainment District. Yeah. So you can, in a way, understand the mentality at that time thinking about arts and culture, right? But then I see it as a very positive evolution that the Hong Kong government was really hoping to elevate the situation. So fast forward, 2009, I could not believe they hired Ram Koolhaas and his team OMA to work on the master plan. So I was very lucky. I got to join the team. And, as you mentioned, Hong Kong is currently the 3rd biggest art market. And we focus a lot on the front of houses, the museum, the selling, the trade. Me and my partners also worked a lot on these projects, museum and galleries. However, we got really interested in what we call the shadow art world. My father actually works in the logistic business in shipping. So he really our family went through the ups and downs of the economy of Hong Kong. When China opened up the ports, Hong Kong had a very difficult time. Yeah. But it was really great for the country at that time to open up, right? But then I got really interested in the idea of the shadow art world, meaning if we look at everything that is set up here, who's doing the work? The logistic company, the storage, the conservators, your team. And we started, me and my partners, we teach in the university, and we ran a master studio researching the architecture, the facilities, and its relationship of the shadow art world with the front of houses, which is museums and galleries and whatnot, and auction houses. That was 5 years ago. Yeah. Recently, V&A opened up their open storage. Boyman Museum in Rotterdam opened up this nicknamed Salad Bowl, the depot. And we were very happy to see all these happening. But if you look at Hong Kong, we don't have that at the moment. But Hong Kong is indeed planning that, apparently. I don't have much information about it, but the government did mention in the last policy address that with the current renovation and construction of the new terminal in the airport, they're thinking of a storage hub. It makes complete sense. When we were running the studio and the master program 5 years ago, our site was set in the airport. It makes so much sense to have that as the hub because it has the Shenzhen-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge. It connects directly to China. Most tourists go through the airport for various reasons, not just flying. And it becomes I think Hong Kong is undergoing this very interesting combination of trying to fulfill itself as a full system that it caters to having great museums, great gallery, great auction houses, obviously Art Basel. And at the same time, they realize that the shadow art world, in our terms, is actually part of the game player. It's very, very important and very interesting. Sorry, to add one more thing, I also found I'm getting more and more fascinated with Hong Kong not just being kind of this isolated city as the international city. Hong Kong is actually situated in what we call the Greater Bay Area now. It used to be called the PRD, Pearl River Delta. Right now, the Greater Bay Area is so big that it has 86 million people living in there. I believe that's 10 times the population of Switzerland. And it has become this 1 hour living circle. And I'm just speculating, personally, as an architect, when you talk about spaces, if Hong Kong is really a main player of transaction and also potentially the shadow art world, will Hong Kong be able to make use of that advantage and in a way create a stronger synergy with Greater Bay Area? Because Greater Bay Area actually has so much more space than Hong Kong. And that bubbling, amazing art scene in China is extremely interesting. And compared to Hong Kong, I think their logistics system, their storage, their conservation kind of like expertise is not necessary there yet. And I feel like Hong Kong really can perhaps play that role. Yeah, but that's just my speculation.
Yeah, absolutely. We also do feel that the Greater Bay Area, we were just talking literally behind this wall, how the Greater Bay Area becoming a region of itself, sharing resource, expertise, but all these pockets around Hong Kong is also looking to Hong Kong as the leader, as a cultural leader for professionalism and for the very unique benefits that only Hong Kong has. Talking about logistics, a very interesting fact from the most recent art market report is that when we are going through difficult times, import-export rate is basically, for art and antique, it's been slightly declining. However, Hong Kong is the only city in 2024 has a 4% increase for art and antique import-export value. So now I'm going to turn to Angelica, who is a fellow Hong Konger based in Basel.
She's a cultural export.
Yes, cultural.
Yeah, cultural exporting Hong Kong artists to Basel.
Exactly. Well, we didn't have like import-export tax, so it's very economical. So for you, why did you come to Basel?
So it's marriage. I actually, the co-founder of PF25 is my husband, and Donald Mack, he's somewhere over there. Hello. So because of marriage, I moved here from Hong Kong. And I still remember a friend, a curator friend in Hong Kong said, Angelica, maybe it's very slow for you because you are, a fast cultural practitioner. So, and then I said, oh, thank you for the forewarning, but I will see for myself. But then the first year, actually in 2017, when I first moved here, 40 Hong Kongers came visit us in Basel. And then actually, when I look at the Basel, kind of the urban planning and the vicinity, like the relationship, with France, with Germany, it's just around the corner, and then you have this connectivity with other cultures. I was thinking, wow, so it is not a comparative research. If we want to make a project, it is something like maybe a reflection of the city and how maybe possible ways in the future where, what is a better living, So how do we learn from each other? Because I see like in Hafen, the harbor area, I always bring artists, who do installation to this area, and I said, look, what can we do here? And then they see very interesting perspective fresher than my fresh eyes in Basel. So, of course, like I would say it has grown quite organically, this programming that we do, because we have a very modest kind of starting fund to, start our project. But I would say, what we are focusing on is the intercultural connections that we are curating, that we are bringing. And I always imagine, what if Basel and Hong Kong were two people meeting for the first time? What will they say to each other? What kind of questions do they have would they have? So, of course, from Hong Kong, as a Hong Konger, I was also like Betty, born and raised in Hong Kong. I know Basel maybe, before Basel, let's say. Roger Federer, yes, the watch and fair, and of course, I would say, maybe pseudo-Swiss dish called it's a Swiss chicken wing. I don't know if you have been to Hong Kong. There's some very interesting thing. Of course, the Swiss friends here say, what? Are you creating some mythological food in Hong Kong about that? So this is why I think I have this interest in seeing, for instance, the present exhibition, the first solo exhibition, actually by Hong Kong artist Oscar Channing Long. I thought of you the first moment I saw Totten dance, the dance of death. That is so famous. When Klein Basel, we have Gross Basel, we have the murals. And I thought of you. So how do you kind of add up to the narratives and have this exchange? So then we developed a artist in residence program since 2019. And we have artists from Hong Kong living here, staying with us and at Atelier Mondial, one of our institutional partners. So, and then Ellen Bao, Angela Su, Isaac John Wei, and we make new projects in the context and narratives interacting in Basel. But of course, with Hong Kong kind of eyes and sensitivity and sensibility.
Amazing. And Basel obviously complements Hong Kong's development, not only through Basel in Hong Kong, but also Basel is the city for international exchange, when all of you, I can see from artists to filmmakers, coming all together from all over the world. So now I'm going to zoom out a little bit from today's conversations and ask a very kind of big question. Maybe first to Angelica, since you've been talking. What do you, in your perspective, what defines a cultural ecosystem?
Actually, it encompasses quite wide, I would say, of course, the infrastructure, of course, people. I think people is playing, for me, it's really the most important part. And people's knowledge. Yep. Yeah. And then I think that a city's energy, of course, the architecture also plays a really important part. Something I would say, from my perspective, is also time. It's a very key factor that actually the infrastructure or this knowledge, maybe sometimes we need a bit of time, for them to mature, and also the death comes from time as well. Yeah. So then I think time is also a very valuable. Also, of course, different beliefs, geography, policy, and yes.
Absolutely, times, absolutely agreed. During COVID, we had a lot of rumor that, Basel, Hong Kong is moving to another Asian city. And then people come to me and asking, like, are you gonna move? And simply our answer is like, It's 13 years of nurturing one city. You can't just like move like this. So yeah, we are staying in Hong Kong. We can't waste the time and the ecosystem that we've been growing together with the city. So Betty, from an architect's perspective, what is a cultural ecosystem to you?
I guess my answer probably will be space related, but as you mentioned, let's zoom out and talk about it. I always wonder, I guess this is a very heavy question, to be honest, because the idea of an ecosystem always sort of, I guess, imply we need to be complete. Yeah. And I think this is something I really ask myself, because I do understand that in Hong Kong, the idea of art is work is not necessarily understood by parents. Let's put it that way. Yeah. When any child wants to be an artist, usually their enthusiasm will be pretty much deterred by the parents thinking like, oh, how are you going to make a living, And I think that's really a big pity, because personally for me, of course the society is important, but then the artist itself is the core of a cultural ecosystem. Artist doesn't mean necessarily people who paint, but people who create. I feel like curators are actually part of that kind of artistic language also. But having said that, I really wonder whether it's essential for us to be a complete ecosystem. One of the reasons I'm saying this is because I heavily enjoy the idea of being incomplete. And because of that, I seek for collaboration, and I seek for other piece of puzzle that can actually help us to be complete, if that makes sense. One of the reasons, that reasoning comes from, I call the firm collective, is that I am definitely an incomplete architect. I've only been working as an architect, but to run a firm is another story, so I recruit my partners. Yeah. Likewise for culture, I personally feel like it is quite important to work internationally, not just for the sake of being international, but working in different culture, working with different people really create very new thoughts and potential. For example, we're doing the Seoul Media City Biennale. My company basically is seen as Asian, but we have a Spanish, we have an American, and we have a person like myself. We have quite a few nationality in our office in Hong Kong, and the artistic director is actually the team at eFlux. So we have a bunch of Americans, but they're actually from everywhere in the world. And we were in Korea working with the Seoul Museum of Art, and it's a government-run entity. Can you imagine the cultural clashes and misunderstanding and interests? And I thought that was extremely interesting, because there are constraints, there are misunderstanding, there are difficulties, but there's also a lot of hope and like curiosity. And that incompleteness put everyone together to try to do one thing together, if that makes sense. And I just feel so energized by that. So I guess for me, the answer, sorry, is a long answer to your very short question, is that for me, a cultural ecosystem is indeed the openness to be incomplete, and that you really need to actively find people to work with you to make it as complete as possible in that context. Yeah.
We definitely feel what you mean by being in Hong Kong for the past decades, how to fill the gaps, how to kind of elevate people's awareness of art and culture, and that incompleteness, and that different level of understanding what culture, what art and culture can bring to a city, is also has been a very wonderful challenge for us. Like seeing that people's the increase of awareness of what culture can bring to not only the economy but like just in general life, and the new generations is extremely important. And now I want to throw this question back to Angelica. I know that for PF25, you do a lot of these collaborations and projects with with public institutions as well as grassroots. How do you elevate this awareness, and how do you engage art with audience who are not familiar with art and culture?
So actually, I think it's organic the way, because we, as a Hong Konger, we are very adaptive, and we're very responsive to, the world situation. So I think the programming for us, because we are small institutions, so it's really reacting to what's going on. So in COVID, maybe it's during COVID, we actually bring artworks to be projected on architecture in Klein Basel by the Rhine. So with a water theme, at the time. I don't know whether we will have a slide soon, but yes, and we often bring our, now we actually having a look at our main space, but this is the street scene we create. So this is last year at Kunsttage Basel in August. So it's also a very vibrant week where we have visitors into Basel. And then we were occupying actually the very iconic architectural bookshop called Domus House. And yes, it is quite an important site, especially for architects in Basel and the region. And I invited anyone, a very renowned artist who works with ceramics. And she was here for a residency program, and we showed burned books, but they're ceramics, in this space. So it's adding a bit of this reflection, and also the memory, the collective memory of this space is a little bit transformed and volumized, because we are thinking, so when the books are burned, what remains? So yeah, it's a memory also to the space, and also of people who are joining, this exhibition. And of course, another strategy, very interesting, is about cooking. It's about food. Who doesn't love food?
Yeah, especially the Hong Kong audience.
Yeah, so we have a Borrow Kitchen program with Annie. So, so you see me, actually, I'm cooking there, playing mahjong.
Oh, wow.
And a growing community of Hong Kongers and also our supporters. So it's through food sometimes. And Annie actually made this project with us, and we, of course, we do the matchmaking, because in every program, we will match the artists, Hong Kong artists, with local artists. We have one artist here, Dorothea Sauter, is a sculptor from Switzerland and living in Basel. So this is really actively, and we try to engage, to build dialogue and engage through different means and forms of art. I think also we take our, we also have partnerships with institutions, so our project is kind of spreading out, not really in just one space. So we're going to the street, and I think during the COVID time, while here is kind of normalized, but in Hong Kong, I understand the situation was quite severe. So an artist called Hong Kong actually made a work called Streetscapes, 360-24. So it really is a 24-hour of Hong Kong streetscape without people during the time. So it was very surreal for me, and I kind of installed it at the architecture office in Gross Basel, where people can really walk and thought, oh, what is going on here? And then they got intrigued. They got very curious. I think this curiosity is also, spreading without, you don't have to kind of reach out too much, but they come to you as well. Because we are kind of living in a city I feel very lucky to be living here, because I think in general, people are very open. I think that openness is very important. And so this is, organically growing.
Yeah.
Our partnerships also with other institutions.
And I understand that you two actually collaborated on this project, the Mills,
Yes.
Center for Heritage Art and Textiles in Hong Kong. How did you find each other? And how, as an architect, how did you also do other pro bono kind of cultural projects? How do you see that, okay, this is the art project that I would like to be involved?
I tell the story?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually a really great story. Angelica at that time was the chief curator for
Director.
Yeah, for the Mills, and she commissioned a Hong Kong artist, Dong Pang Lam, for a mural on the roof of the building.
I remember that.
Dong Pang is a friend of mine, and he came to us and said, Betty, will you be interested in working together on this? And I was like, why would you need me if you're doing a mural? And it was a beautiful situation. Dongpang, as a painter, seeing the site on an outdoor roof, he wanted to do something different. He wanted to work with an architect to co-create a sculpture, something that is more physical. So we had a discussion, and then I recall him saying, but I don't want you to just be a project manager to build this for me. I would like it to be a co-creation. And Dongpang brought this up to Angelica, and she's so cool, and she was like, absolutely. So in the end, we were actually credited as part of the artist team, like Dongpang Lam and Collective, as the co-creator, creator of that piece of work, which is a 24-meter kind of long mural, but is with 6,000 pieces of aluminum tiles that actually sway with the wind, because the mills used to be the mills. Yeah, so it was a beautiful collaboration made possible by Angelica. I think you really encompasses this idea of, working together, openness, because in general, I think in Hong Kong, no one think of architects should be credited as a co-creator. We are always just building it up, making the drawings. We do a lot of collaboration with artists, actually. I'm not complaining, but indeed many moments we were not credited. And I do understand that. We were seen more as builders. And I think that's also one of the reasons why that commission was so important for us, because we do not think we're artists. Don't get me wrong. I feel like an architect is completely different from being an artist. But we have so much joy working with artists. I mean, there's a lot of emerging artists that we work with that are really cool. We discuss how to build things. But one experience that I really wanted to share was working with Liu Fan on the Power Station of Art show with Gong Yan, the director. He is quite old. He was on site. And we were really co-creating because he wanted a room, but he didn't really know how to work it out. Also, there's the communication, matter of the team is Chinese. I do recall we stay up all night, installing, and I went there at 6 a.m. Liu Fan was sitting there, pretty frustrated, and we had a very long chat, very slow chat, and we started sketching and drawing. And obviously for me, that was an amazing moment. But what I've learned is how open he was, as such an important artist. And also being at his age, he still really super care about the work, that minute detail. And I think what was most touching for us was that he had made sure that the museum director and everyone knew that we were quintessential in making that piece of work happen. And I was very touched because he did not see us as just builder and constructor. He really see us as a scenographer that co-create his piece of work. And I think that is something quite new in the art world, if I must say. I want to bring this really interesting thing up, and I hope I don't step on anyone's tail. I bought this children's book published by David Swiner called Making a Great Exhibition. I was like, great, maybe I can buy it for my niece. So I
think I have that book as well.
Yeah, I flip. I was like, great, lighting designer, curator, like the logistic team. There were no designers. Zero mention of exhibition designer, scenographer, while talking about making an exhibition. My point is, I think it's very interesting that I do understand that not exhibition have an architect or have a designer, but us being architects, we work a lot on exhibition design, and it was such a joy, and it really makes the exhibition so different. I was shocked that the book did not talk about the scenographer or the exhibition designer. But it does mean that this piece of puzzle is actually pretty much missing. Because I guess architects are always seen as the architect for museum and galleries, but never part of the curatorial team.
Yeah, I think it's also part of the awareness that we were talking about.
Because art is work.
Yeah,
this is
exactly.
part of work.
And you also do other pro bono projects. I think Parasite, that's part of your projects as well.
Oh.
And from an institution's perspective, like when do you decide this needs to be involving an architect and this is something that is more like a how do you decide?
So when speaking of now, we're in Basel. I think very naturally because my partner, my co-founder, actually is an architect himself. So I actually work so much with him about space.
Yeah.
Yes. And about installation plan, we go through everything, technical stuff. We are very kind of a small team, but we work very efficiently this way. And of course, I study also history of art and architecture, and I really think it is not, architecture is not only about, safety, because you keep people safe inside, right? In the very beginning, like when we talk about maybe Alberti's dictum on painting, But now I think it's also, it actively also changed how we conceive things. If, the cultural life and the narratives of art making. Because let's take the current exhibition, To Sleep and Wake Unafraid, by Oscar Channing Long in our space, which is on view at the moment. He actually worked according to this architectural structure. Our space is a 16th century house, very old house, and how it actually inspired him to work with it, to make maybe elements that were so surprised to, it is a very big surprise element. If you know the space before this exhibition and you enter, you will know, oh my goodness, all the lightness, all the light, all the reflection is changed. Of course, we work heavily also with the architect, this Donald, in kind of devising the installation, the production of the piece and the installation plan. So I think I see actually people we work together with, they are collaborators, because I think you can't really produce something just by yourself, not a project. No, you have a lot of people, you work together as a team.
Yeah.
So everyone in them, that's why when you ask me about what is cultural ecosystem for me, the first thing comes to my mind, not only artists and architects, but I think people. People mix the space, people mix the project, and people mix the program.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something.
Absolutely, and I think design will very much be, a complement to this growth of ecosystem as well. And actually, in Hong Kong, outside of March, the art month, we also have a design month, which is in December. We have a few minutes. I just want to squeeze in this one question because everybody's been talking since COVID about digital. And now we're going from digitals, debate between digital, in-person, and now we're kind of in an era of like hybrid. So what do you feel digital and technology can help these kind of like development in the art or the cultural ecosystem to further expand and help interact?
Do everyone remember NFT? I remember at that time, we were approached by quite a few collectors. Can you design a space for us to show NFT? Sure. You mean a permanent space, right? Like a physical space. I thought it was very interesting. And I might sway a little bit away from like answering directly, but there's this question that I always found very important is, do space inform art or do art inform space?
Chicken and egg.
Take modern, for example. It's an incredible space because a lot of artists respond to that space and create particular artwork. But then if you go to a white cube, it's like the most neutral and generic, I don't mean it in a negative way. It's a much needed debate though. Any art can go in there and look good. It looks so sacred. And for me, the digital art part it's inevitable. Like, it just becomes a medium of life, if I might put it that way. So to use that as a medium of creation, it makes sense. but doesn't necessarily mean the space will change. And now we're talking about virtual and physical. That becomes a very difficult question to answer. In general, I am more personally interested in creating spaces that are completely flexible in that sense. In some of the slides we were showing, we are experimenting a lot of idea of flexibility by using mechanical means of moving walls around. That is actually to address the very tiring question of sustainability. The most sustainable way is not to do a show and not to build, but of course, it's inevitable for us to do that, and we want it to be constructive. So a few of the projects we have tested reusable walls that we have it in space and move it around, particularly for Christie's headquarters, and also Art Intelligence Global for Amy Capalesso and Yuki Terese. It has proven to be very useful. So we are just baby steps trying to address this idea of flexibility, because with flexibility, I do feel like all kinds of work will be able to shine in a sense. I don't have the answer, but I feel like when that really comes, when that brief comes, we will be able to offer a potential solution to it. But right now, I do still strongly believe in the physical space. But then my preoccupation right now is a lot about how do you create a flexible space.
And Angelica, how do you make use of this digital to, strive further your program?
I think I did, in Berlin, I did one kind of video talks where we show video, and Gong Gei was involved, and I moderate kind of artist talk while he was in Hong Kong and while we were in Berlin with artist Yukihiro Takuchi, who was based in Berlin. I think that kind of infrastructure was not possible, like 15, 20 years ago, but we do have it. I'm talking about very kind of user, on the user level. And during also the difficult times in Hong Kong, I actually made Hong Kong, with a head. I was holding an iPad, walking around. So he's interacting with our guests and questions. I think some of you were there on the streets, and this streetscapes. And think of AI going into that. And we, last year, we had the pleasure having Alan Bao working in Basel with us, and on a project called Speculative Generation of Flora Zero. Actually, everything kind of stems from the genome of our Hong Kong flower, our city flower, Bohemia, and in which actually Luke Ching and another botanist, Mei Cheng. So we work with a lot of collaborators. They have found out one very important link, Hong Kong and Basel. That is, Bohemia, this flower, is actually attributed to the Bauhin brothers. The first botanist is Gaspar Bauhin, is the first professor of botany in the department with the University of Zurich. So thank you to the artists. It's really, I didn't know. So when I told Alan about this, it's like, oh my goodness. Because I'm thinking about context, Hong Kong in Basel, and this could not be more fitting, I would say. And then the people in Basel also said, oh my goodness, we never knew this kind of a source of information, that we are that connected, that close. So thinking about Basel and Hong Kong, and thinking about AI, all that, but from kind of a curator's point of view. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so now we are coming to the end of this panel. You have 1 minute each, so I give you this bigger questions. Last year, I heard from one of the podcasts that our art ecosystem, the roles in the art ecosystems are all evolving. Artists become dealers, dealers becomes curators, curators becomes critiques, How do you see your role as a curator, as an architect, evolving in this changing art ecosystem?
As a Hong Konger, I think we are thinking about time and speed a lot, and even under tremendous stress and tension. I think this is how we are reacting to things, but very sometimes I think we need to react to things in the fast pace, like the Hong Kong speed. But sometimes I have learned in Switzerland that it's I would say slower, and yet more often one of those places where you have a reflective pace of life. Then I really think I learned how to balance, maybe I have to learn more how to balance the two. And actually, these are the strengths. You have, this intensity, you have this speed. Yet, on the other hand, I think death comes with time, with patience. So this I kind of learn. I'm still learning a lot, in Switzerland, and how things are made as a Hong Konger.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Be a more patient curator for you.
but the
curators out there.
connector, at the connector of things.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes,
people.
absolutely. And as an architect, to evolve your role.
Yeah, I think we have always been playing sort of, we are kind of like, we sort of go through the gaps and play along with the art ecosystem by working a lot with curators. Actually, I see our role evolving in a way that we have to sort of de-architect ourselves, if that makes sense. When you're seen as an architect, people see that you build and you construct and you're rational, there are rules and regulation. But actually, I think one of the reasons that we manage to work with amazing curators is because they do understand that we're malleable. Yeah, like we do understand extremely abstract and concepts and ideas. And in a way, I was thinking to actually allow us to work more with artists and curators and institutions and nonprofit, whatnot. We sort of have to de-architect ourselves a bit, saying that we are not coming in as an architect teaching you how to build, but we're here to really be part of your team. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, our honorary speakers, and thank you very much for coming, our audience. Thank you, Hong Kong Tourism Board, for once again supporting our panels in Basel. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Angelle. Thank you, Betty. Thank you, Angelica. It was a fascinating talk, and I hope that many of you will come to see us in Hong Kong. As a result, I would like to just finish the day with 2 invitations. The first one is to absolutely take a moment to go and see Oscar Stan's exhibition at PF25. It's on until the 22nd, so that's Sunday. Book an appointment, you can do that online and go and see it. You will not be disappointed. So that's my first invitation. My second invitation is to come back tomorrow. We're going to launch the inaugural Art Basel Awards Summit here in this auditorium, and you'll be able to hear from our medalist and jury members, really extraordinary leaders in their fields. So again, you won't be disappointed. So thank you again for being here, and have a great evening. Thank you.